All right. So I'm going to go over GitHub real quick. Everyone should have received a GitHub invite to November Platoon's organization. If I come over here, look at people, I noticed there's 9 invitations that have yet to be accepted. Some of them are TAs, that's okay, but I noticed some people have yet to accept their invite. So GitHub. Does anybody know what GitHub is? So who's raised it? Someone shout out, what's GitHub?
Yeah, GitHub's a is a utility that you use to host and manage your applications.
So, yep, that's one thing definitely. So we can host. Can you host applications like on GitHub?
Static site.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean host the application. Host the repository of the application.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. So GitHub is essentially just like an online repository of where you can save your code at up on the internet. So if you think of like Dropbox or Box or Google Docs or Google Drive, it's just a central repository or central location where you can save your code up on the internet. So you don't have to, you're afraid of losing it on your local machine. You can also save different versions or different save points or get status or what is it? Essentially different versions of your code on GitHub. So GitHub, November Platoon's organization, this is where all the material for the entire cohort exists. You're going to be using this daily. So if you haven't signed up for it yet or have access to it yet, please reach out to Ankur or Chad or one of the TAs, and we'll make sure that you get access to it. So this is GitHub or November Platoon's GitHub organization. And these are all the challenges, that you're going to be working through the entire cohort. But the one main repository I want to focus on is this curriculum repository. This is where you're going to be working off of pretty much daily. So the curriculum repository breaks down the entire cohort by week and by day. So if you open up the curriculum repository right here, I'd probably save this, like bookmark it, November Platoon curriculum, because you're going to be coming to this every single day. So here's all the weeks. And here's some more information that we'll be going over. But if I open up like week 1, so here we go, this is the first week of the cohort. And week 1. So once we go into week 1, it's broken down into days. So each day is a markdown file, essentially another file. But here's week 1. Each week 1 has links to all the days, which I'll show you in a second. But also for each week, we cover the weekly topics, so you all know what's going to be covered that week. So like for this week, we're going to be covering Git version control basics, GitHub, which we're doing right now, and test-driven development. We're going to kind of cover why it's important. Helps you create different save points in your application so you can read through all this and what you'll be able to do what you'll be able to accomplish after the end of each week. So if we jump into the day, so today is February 1st, I'm going to open that up into a new window. I'm going to come over here. This is all the material that we're going to be covering today. So it's going to be kind of broken out to, so Monday, February 1st, 2021. We have some video resources. These are Mike Platoon's recorded lectures from last cohort. So if I open this up, it opens up to a playlist of week 1 of Mike Platoon's. So if you're working on challenges and want to look at or get ahead or just reference past lectures, here are all Mike Platoon's week 1's challenges. So these are all recorded from October of last year. And if you go over here, playlists, we also have all the playlists here. Mike week 8, 7, 6, 5. We've even got Lima Platoon, Kilo Platoon, Juliet Platoon, India Platoon. So it goes way back. So you can look at all these different lectures. So there's week 1 videos, the topics covered. We're going to be exploring your IDE today. So your IDE is essentially VS Code. We're going to cover VS Code extensions, interacting with the command line, and the overall goals, get your local machine set up for the entire course, set up your cloud-based browser for Windows using VS Code and getting it configured correctly, and being able to navigate your computer during or using the command line. So here's the lesson that Chad's going to cover later on today. And here's specifically what we're going to be doing today. Any questions about the curriculum repository and the week 1, how like the weeks are broken down? No questions. All right. So today is a little bit different just because the pretty much goal of today is setting up your local machine for the entire course if you're on a Mac. If you're on a Windows, we have another way, or Linux, or if you're on a Windows, we have another solution for that. But that's the main objective today. So if you leave here today, just make sure that we want to make sure that your local machine is set up for the entire course. And we're going to be installing a lot of software. You're not going to know what a lot of it does. That's not important right now. We just want to get this software installed on your machine so you're set up for the rest of the course. All right. So go ahead if you're go ahead and let's follow along, because the next hour and a half, we're going to probably go past noon because this is going to take a little while. But we just want to make sure that everybody's set up by the end of the day. So if everything's not working by the time we go on lunch, that's okay. We can come back in the afternoon and revisit it, reach out to Ankur, Chad, or one of the TAs, and they'll help you finish setting it up. So let's go ahead and get started. Whoa. So computer setup. Before we get started, just want to know that, again, today's going to be a little chaos. Your goal is to get a working environment, not to understand everything that happens, just follow along as closely as possible. If you fall a little bit behind, that's okay. That's totally fine. If you fall behind or if you get some errors, it's okay. We'll make sure that everyone is set up. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to be doing is installing Slack and Zoom. Obviously, everyone has Zoom installed already. It's already downloading Zoom. So download Slack for Mac. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. If you have the new MacBook and with Apple Silicon, you can download it here. Or if you're everyone else, download it here. So when you click on that, it's going to download it. Same with Zoom, you're going to download it. So it's already started downloading. Where'd it go? So download Slack and Zoom. And once they're downloaded, Slack and here, install them. And then once you actually install the actual application, like, so if I'm not going to do it now because I already have it installed. You want to drag the application into your applications directory. So this is putting it at the root directory of your machine. That's really important. And then you're going to want to sign up for Operation Code. I know Rod mentioned Operation Code earlier. Operation Code is another nonprofit that essentially just helps veterans transition into tech. You can ask questions on there. You can find mentors on there. You can, if you're running into challenges for a personal project on there, you can reach out to them. So over the next 5 minutes, download Slack, install it, drag the application into your applications directory. Yep, so download it in the applications directory. And then download Zoom. If you haven't moved Zoom into your applications directory, do that now, and then sign up for Operation Code. And also, let's just keep going because that's pretty quick. You're going to download VS Code if you haven't done so already. So if you're on a Windows here, well, don't worry about Windows. If you're on a Mac, download VS Code here and install VS Code. And once it's installed, click and drag the application, VS Code application, into your applications folder. Some applications automatically like tell you to like, there's like a little pop-up and says like, hey, drag it into your applications directory. So they kind of facilitate that for you. Just make sure you follow along with that. Then if you're on a Mac, you can download iTerm. iTerm is just a terminal, like an alternative terminal for the Mac OS. So you can download that. Also drag that and drop it into the applications directory. And finally, yep, that's it. So over the next 5 minutes, download Slack, drag the install it, drag it into your applications directory, download Zoom, drag it into the applications directory, sign up for Operations Code or Operation Code. Please do this. They're a great organization. And then download VS Code if you haven't already. I know it was in the pre-work, but if you haven't, download VS Code, install it, drag it into the applications directory right here. So you can see kind of how I've got, where's my VS Code? I don't even know where it's at. Looks like I have to download and drag it into the operation or application directory. So like iTerm is downloaded and installed in the applications directory. So go ahead and do that. And we'll go ahead and get started again at 11:19. All right, let's keep going. Who had Ubuntu? Was it Kyle? So
yeah, I'm gonna do it on a virtual machine, so
okay.
I was planning on using Ubuntu, but my computer's Windows. I just am used to using the virtual, whatever's easiest.
Okay, so if you have Ubuntu, you can use this. If you're Windows, there's two things you can do. If you feel you're relatively competent and you're able to install everything that we're about to go through, if you think you can install everything that we're about to install specifically on the Mac, like we don't have a Windows equivalent because this entire course is written for Mac. So you can Google how to install everything that we're about to install via the Mac, but the equivalent to Windows. If you can do that, or you can use AWS Cloud 9, which will set up literally a virtual, essentially using AWS, set up an EC2 instance, essentially like a server or not a server, essentially an EC2 instance, and just have your code up on AWS and have your terminal, have your IDE all up on AWS. It's super easy to use. The only problem is it'll probably cost you about $20 a month, but everything's up on there. And so you don't have to, it's super easy to install everything. You can take a look at that. But right now we're going to complete the InstallFest on Macs. So what we're going to cover right now, this is going to, again, we're going to install a lot of software. You're not going to know necessarily what it all does, but just bear with me for the next hour and hope we'll get through it. And if you're running into issues, that's okay. After the lecture in the afternoon, we'll hop on one-on-one, or your fellow student will be able to help you debug. So what we're going to cover, we're going to install everything that you need for the course. Please do this in order. So we just installed Visual Studio Code. We're going to install this code command. We're going to install Homebrew, SQL, Postgres, SQLite, Postgres, Python, Node, and all that stuff. So the first thing, we're going to install the code command. So what you're going to do is click this link. So we're going to launch the ability to launch our VS Code from the command line. So if I open up where'd it go? So here is VS Code. VS Code is just a text editor that is specifically used for writing code. So a text editor, just like Google Docs, Microsoft Word, like Microsoft Word and Google Docs is used for writing, documents. VS Code is used for writing software. So if you open up this, run through the directions all the way up to restart the terminal for the new path. So launch VS Code, which I just did. I can open up the command palette by running Shift Command P. So if I run Shift Command P, it's going to open up this little input box, which is the command palette. Or you can go up to View, click Command Palette, opens it up as well, and just type the word code. So if I type in code, it should say shell command install code command in path. Click on that, and it'll say shell command code successfully installed in path. And then you can go ahead and restart VS Code. Oh no. So if I go ahead, so what that does, oh man, where am I going? If I open up iTerm, which we also installed, where's my iTerm at? So this is iTerm, which we installed earlier. Right there. So this is just a command line that we're going to be using. If I type in code, if I zoom in, if I just type in code, click enter, where'd it go? It should be opening up my VS Code. Oh, there it is. Just type that again. I just closed it. There, it just opened up VS Code. So go ahead and run through this all the way up to restarting the terminal for the new path. So this creates a symbolic link for your command line, and you can run code, some file to open up your file folder.
Quick question for you. Is the iTerm any special thing for us Windows users?
No, it's specifically for a Mac.
Gotcha. I know, but like, is there any kind of logical equivalent?
I don't know. And we're actually going to not be using iTerm a lot going forward. We're going to be using VS Code's built-in terminal.
Got it.
All right, so it'll take the next 3 minutes to do that, and we'll come back at 11:28 to, all right, let's keep going. Let's make sure everyone's on mute. All right, thank you. All right, next we're going to install Homebrew. Homebrew is what is called the missing package manager for Mac OS. Essentially, it allows you to customize or install, customize packages and the different versions of those packages on your local machines, because you might be installing multiple different packages. However, different applications might require you to have different versions of those applications or packages. So this Homebrew allows us to manage all of that. So if you open up iTerm, I'm just going to use iTerm throughout this. So we're going to be using iTerm throughout this entire setup. So have it working. I'm going to make that, there you go. Should put this off to the side. So all you really need to do is type in which brew, because you might have already installed it. You don't need this little $sign before that. This whole code snippet represents what to type in the terminal. So after the $sign, I'm going to copy this which brew, and I'm going to come over here to iTerm and copy which brew. And if you see something that says user local bin brew, just like right here, you're good to go. You don't have to do anything. If you don't see that, you can run this command and it should remedy the issue. So Homebrew is going to do a lot of work for us in that it manages our software versions. So always ensure that it's up to date and that it's healthy. So after you run which brew and you see something like this, you can do brew update. You can run brew update and run that. And it'll probably take a while. It might take like 5 minutes. Go ahead and run brew update. And then afterwards, run brew doctor to make sure that it's your system is ready to go, just to make sure everything is good. So if you run brew doctor, it's like if I do mine's probably going to throw a bunch of warnings. That's okay. It's fine. They're just warnings. It means I need to update some stuff. But as long as everything's good, and once your system is up to date, it should say your system is ready to brew. So let's take the next 5 minutes till 11:37 to install Homebrew and making sure that it's an updating Homebrew.
Hey, Tom.
All right. Again, if you're running into issues, that's okay. We will make sure that everything is resolved by the end of the day. But with that, we're just going to keep going. So Homebrew is going to be installing packages and tools for us. So we need to make sure that when possible, our system is using Homebrew's installed packages. We'll start by inspecting our path. So if we type or copy this echo $path, don't include the $, just use echo path, go into iTerm.
Oh, the $sign may have thrown me off.
Okay. Yep. Where'd my item go? Where did my item go? What the hell? All right, there it is. So if I get out of here, if I type in echo path that, and I get a bunch of crap. So if you get something like looks like user John bin user, this is the user of the Mac or the thing. If you get something like this, that's okay. If you get something with a lot of other stuff, that's still okay. The thing that you want to make sure is that user local bin comes before user bin, come before bin. So right here, user local bin comes before user bin, comes before bin. If I look at mine, I've got user local bin, comes before user bin, comes before bin. I'm good to go. And if you don't, if that doesn't, you're going to have to open up a bash profile and export this. But if it doesn't do this, we'll walk you through it offline. So go ahead and do that.
I just had a question real quick.
Yep.
My thing just finished installing. I went to go to brew update and now it says the command is not found, even though it just installed.
Having the same error.
Okay.
It's saying that there's no brew found.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
before we get too far ahead, I'm also still waiting on installing.
Yeah, it takes a long. It could take a long time to install. And again, that's okay. We will get everyone there after this. All right. So you're adjusting the path for Homebrew. It's good. And the reason why we do that is just we want to make sure everything, all the software that we're installing is ran at the root directory of our machine. All right, next we're going to do install SQLite. And if your Homebrew isn't working for you, that's okay. We will get you there. But yeah. So next we're going to do brew install SQLite. So if I open up here, clear this and I do brew install SQLite. SQLite, Homebrew core is a shallow clone. That's totally, SQLite is already installed and up to date. Okay. That's interesting. I haven't seen that. All right. But I've already have SQLite installed. SQLite is literally just a lightweight version of a SQL database. It's literally just a file that stores data that you can run SQL queries on. We're going to be using that in Django a little bit. And after you install that, we're going to do brew install Postgres. Postgres is an actual relational database that you're going to store, that you're going to have an actual database on your local machine. So you're going to do brew install Postgres. So if I do that, I might get some errors. That's okay. Brew install Postgres. Okay, that's fine. But yep, Postgres 13.1 is already installed and up to date. And then once you're done with that, Postgres is a piece of software that requires a server to interface with. It's easiest to let OS X launched utility keep the server running. Otherwise, we'd have to restart it every time it died or our machine is rebooted. So what we want to do is every time we upload or restart our computer or start our machine up, we want the Postgres to automatically boot up. So we don't have to manually start our Postgres database every time. And in order to do that, you can run these two commands. Run this ln, run that command, press enter, followed by this command. Launch, you load, blah, blah, blah. This isn't necessity, but it's just convenient because you don't have to manually start your Postgres server. So run both of those back to back, that one, then this one. And then once you're done doing that, we can type in which Postgres. So if I type in which Postgres, and it says user local bin Postgres, that means Postgres has been installed at our root directory. That's good. So this is the expected output. And then we can also write which PSQL, user local bin PSQL. That's the expected output. And then now Homebrew will keep our Postgres server alive so that we can just develop awesome apps and not worry about the database. So it's just always running in the background. And it's okay, that's running in the background. It doesn't use a whole lot of processing power. So if you think your apps or your machine's running slow, it's not going to be because this is running. It's going to be for some other reason. So next, we just want to make sure our server is running by running ps aux pipe grep Postgres. So if I run that, I'm going to see a bunch of stuff. And these are all the different, you don't need to know what, as long as you have something in here that's actually open or like showing up, you're good to go. So if you look right here, this user lin Postgres, yours will be a little bit different, but if you have something that shows up, you'll be okay. So go ahead and do that, and we'll take 5 minutes and come back, and we'll actually create our first database.
I'm sorry.
If you're behind, it's okay. We promise everyone before everyone leaves today, we'll make sure that your machines are up to date and everything is working for you to be able to progress through the course. All right. So next, if your Postgres is updated and it's started, if your Postgres server is running, you can run create db user in your terminal. What this is going to do is create an actual database for your user. So if you run create db user, I'm not going to do it because I already have one. And then once you create one, you can run this next command, psql user, which will actually go into the Postgres database. So right here, like when you created that, this create db user, that creates a a database for your user on your local machine. So whatever your local machine is called. So like mine is called TA Preet. I created a database for TA Preet, and now I'm actually inside of a SQL database. So I can actually run like select star from, I can actually start running SQL commands in there. So if that shows up, you're good to go. If not, that means your SQL server or your Postgres wasn't installed correctly, or your Postgres isn't actually running. But we can also manually start your server as well. You know, if you're in there, you can do \Q to get out of the SQL server and get back to the terminal.
I'm actually getting an error on that.
Okay.
It could not connect to database template 1.
Could not connect to template database 1. When you did PSQL user?
No, when I typed in create DB user.
Okay. You probably might have to manually start. So when you probably did this, something shows up, but your probably server is not actually running. So
Yeah, so
I'm going to post something in the November's channel. How to manually start Postgres DB.
it says it can't connect to the server or no such file directory exists.
Okay, yeah, that might be an issue, or that is an issue. We'll tackle that afterwards.
So should I do what you just posted in the Slack then?
Yeah, see if that works.
Okay.
See what shows up. All right, let's keep going. Next, we're going to actually install Python. So your Macs come with Python 2.7 already installed, but let's actually install the newest version of Python, which I think it's like 3.7 now, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. So if I clear this and do brew install Python, it says, all right, that's cool, but I'll probably say, so it looks like it's updating my Python. Oh, brew cleanup hasn't been ran. So yeah, run that. So please note that it'll take a while to install the most recent version of Python on your computer. Once it's finished, type in the Python command. So once it's done installing, if I type in Python, I got Python 3.9. Cool. So that's what mine says. So despite the most recent version, if yours might probably say, so just if yours says like 2.7 or something like that, yeah, just let me know once you get, if somebody gets to that point, let me know what yours says and we'll go from there. So let's take 5 minutes till noon and we'll come back, do that. All right, next we're going to install Git. So if you run brew install Git, Git is how we're going to essentially save different save points of our code, essentially different versions of our code. So if you do brew install Git and then run which Git, you should see something that says user local bin Git. So OS X ships with Git isn't that good. Answer, it might be it's likely out of date, but you won't benefit. There you go. Git is a tool we'll use frequently, so installing it and keeping it up to date is akin to a chef keeping their knives sharp. So run brew install Git.
Hey Tom, quick question. I'm a little behind, but I'm trying to figure out once you install. So I'm on the whole like Postgres part. Once I installed, I did the brew install Postgres. Am I supposed to type out that first box right after it has a little message where it says, a piece of software or whatever. You know what I'm
No,
talking
like this part?
Well, let me see.
Or
Yeah,
this,
no, that part right there. Am I supposed to? That's
Yeah.
set that in. Okay,
yeah, copy this and then
Right.
copy this.
gotcha. Okay.
Cool. All right. So next, what we're going to do, we're going to install a global git ignore file. A git ignore file just prevents us from uploading unnecessary packages, files, just unnecessary code up to GitHub that we don't want up there. So we can run touch. Again, touch is a command that creates a file. We're going to run touch git ignore or git ignore global. And then using GitHub's git ignore guide, we're going to set up the file for our computer. It's pretty straightforward. So if we go down, oh yeah. So git ignore. So it's run this file or run this command afterwards. So run that and then run this command. Then after you do that, we want our setup, our Git to our GitHub. So Git allows us, we're going to cover this later. Git allows us to save different versions of our code, essentially different save points of our code on our local machine. But GitHub is where we're going to actually be pushing that code. So we're going to set up our command line Git username. So if you click on here, it's going to say setting up your username in Git. And you're just going to follow through or follow these directions. You're going to say git config global user.name and Mona Lisa. This is where your GitHub handle should be. So if I say, where's my terminal? So right here, if I were to put like my specific Tom Preet and execute that, and then after if you follow the directions, run git config global username. You can see my name is right there, Tom Preet. So that's for the username. And next is the email. So setting your commit email address. If you scroll down, setting your commit email address in Git. Again, you'll want to do git config global user.email and then the email address you use for GitHub. Run that. So right here for mine would be like tom.preet@gmail.com or something. And then if I run git global config user email, I use the email address that I'm using for GitHub. And last, we want to cache our password so we don't always have to type in our password when we're pushing. We don't want to type in our GitHub password every time we're pushing code up to GitHub. We only want to do it once. So if you're right here, if you follow the directions, install Git using the OS X keychain helper. You can run this and it should work. Just run through these directions. Yep. So yeah, just run through those directions. And so the first time you push up to GitHub from your local machine, it'll prompt you to type in your password, and then it'll cache your password so you don't have to type it in multiple times. And we're almost there. One of the last things we want to do is make sure our VS Code is the default text editor. So just copy that in. You won't see anything in your command line. It'll just, okay, good, that's good to go. And then for confirm git config is set up both with your username, email by running git config global. And actually I'm going to clear everything first. If you want to clear everything, you can clear it. And then there we go. We got username, Tom Preet, email address is this. we have our global git ignore file, and our core editor is our vscode. And lastly, we want to install bash if you're not using bash. So you can run brew install bash. So brew install bash, which I've already done. That's okay. And now we'll want to code, open up our etc shells. So once we install brew install bash, if you up here, we do code shells, and it opened up this shells file inside of our VS Code. And you're going to see a bunch of stuff in here, list of acceptable shells. It's going to look something like this. So we have bash, all these different shells. And at the very end, we want to add local or user local bin bash to the very last line, which I just did right there. So now you can change your shell to bash. Right there. Changing password. No changes made because my bash shell was my default already. Now we can launch our terminal to make sure everything's set up correctly. There we go. Here's our bash version. And if we do echo shells, we can see the user local bin bash. Again, it's okay if you're behind or if you're getting errors, we will work with you to debug them.